Here is x.com, and this is a Blink. We can now take anything that you can do on Solana, you can now do on any website in the world. This is Blinks, this is Actions. So it's wonderful to be able to share new technology and new products. I have a panel up here of folks from across the Solana ecosystem that have been using this specification to build incredible new products on every surface that you know. We're going to do some quick intros, and why don't you do a quick name and what you do and how long you've been in the Solana ecosystem.
Yeah, so my name is Nico. I'm one of the co-founders and CTO of Arcium. We're a confidential computing network, so basically encrypted smart contracts on Solana. And I've been in the ecosystem for like 2.5 years or something at this point. So yeah, that's me.
Yep, my name's Armani. I'm one of the co-founders, CEO of Backpack, and I've been in Solana since 2020, so a bit of time.
I promised to introduce myself as World Dick. That's how you find me on Discord, Twitter. But Dickson, you can call me Dickson. I'm the front-end engineer at Jupiter. I kind of oversee quite a lot of things going on now, including some of the mobile efforts that we're doing, Terminal, and a lot of the products you see today. My hands are everywhere. So, yeah.
I'm Irffan with double F. I'm co-founder of Cubik. What Cubik does is it's a platform for communities or people to build public goods or open source projects sustainably. So yeah, that's me.
It's great to see so many folks, and as you can tell, these are OGs in Solana. They've been around for a while. Armani, I'm going to tee you up for this one. I came to you, I think, a month ago with a very cool, interesting idea. I want to know what your first thought was and what gave you the gall to say, I'm going to put this in Backpack.
I think the original thought that jumped into my head was how viral it could be. I think there are few platforms like Twitter where you can post something and get millions of people all around the world to get excited about it. And so when I first heard the concept of a Blink, I immediately thought, oh wow, you can put a wallet into literally every Twitter user's hands and create like a whole kind of trend of Solana usage through this. So the virality immediately stuck out, I think.
We've been working closely with the Dialect team who's been building SDKs and tools, and their tagline for Blinks is putting the crypto back into crypto Twitter. So it's wonderful to see that. It's been great to get support from Backpack because the wallet is the magic. That is the thing that's injecting the buttons. That's the thing that's handling the transactions. The APIs of these products are the things returning the transactions. That's how we're able to do this beautiful thing on Solana. Now, I want to send this over to Dickson and Irffan. Both of you built products that are getting exposed through this brand new interface. One, like how hard was it to build, but also like what are some of the cool things that you think people will be able to do as a result?
We did this over the weekend. 5 minutes. It's super, super cool. We have very, very good API that returns the transactions and the wallet just take it over, sign it, and everything's done. So this kind of becomes like a declarations of intentions. If the wallet detects like a swap link, basically it's just calls the Jupyter API in the background and just sign and it's done. So integration was really the deployment take longer than the time that I actually have to do anything, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, so for me, we hacked it last night. As Dickson said, it took like 5 minutes to do it, but like half an hour to deploy it. So yeah, I think one of the best thing this enables is actually wallets can now like inject UIs anywhere in Chrome, be it like I think it's not restricted to only Twitter, be it Twitter, GitHub, Telegram, anything in future can be done through this. So one of the biggest problem we had, because we are working at the intersection of like crowdfunding and open source and public goods. So if you see someone tweeting about like a cool new project they just hacked on a weekend, it would get like 100,000 views on Twitter. But the problem is that dev might not have like resources to actually continue it after that. So we built a platform where they can just put the project and ask everyone, hey, can you just donate us some dollars, and then we match funds based on their donation. So what this enables is now they can just post a tweet that, hey, here is a project I hacked. And in next tweet they are like, hey, now you if you want to support me, you can just like throw in $1 or $2, and like even if like 2% of people turn out to be crowdfunding a small amount, it will be huge for the dev for like to sustainably build for like a long time. So I think it opens up a lot of design space for like other communities outside of content creators and artists to crowdfund things, crowdfund like money. And maybe they can put it on GitHub or like Telegram, because a lot of developers use dev tools which needs to be sustained. And if you have a link on GitHub which shows you a box that, hey, you can donate directly from GitHub, because if you are GitHub has an option to sponsor all your dependencies. What if not just sponsor, you will get it, you'll see a pop-up. If you have a wallet extension, you'll see a UI which will tell you to just give $1 to that dev or that dependency which you depend on. So I think it's really awesome.
Both of you kind of alluded to the intent, right? Like you have a thing that you want to do, and ultimately the the blockchain is the source of truth, right? So why do you have to skip through all of the steps of going to the dApp, figuring the thing out, doing the thing, and then end up sending the same transaction that you were going to do anyway? We can put that all the way at the very front using Blinks. Nico, you were on this panel and you did not know anything about this until literally yesterday. And I did that a little bit on purpose, partially because, one, I knew you would get it. You've been around for a long time, but like, give us fresh thoughts. Like, what's going on in your mind since you heard about this?
Yeah, so when you first showed it to me yesterday, the first thing that came to mind for me is the potential that this has to revolutionize how applications are integrated in the front end. And what I mean by this specifically is today, if you're building your own little front end and you have a different dApp that you want to integrate there, generally speaking, what you do is you take the TypeScript SDK of the dApp that you want to use and you integrate that there. And in practice, for the first 5 minutes, that's going to work great. But as soon as a new version comes out or a bug fix is made or something like that, both for the developer of the SDK and yourself, this is a massive pain. For the reason that essentially, you as a developer, you first have to figure out how does the SDK work in the first place, because it's not really standardized. If you take the SDK from Zeta, the one from Jupyter, and the one from previously Lucid, for example, the way those work isn't necessarily uniform. So already there's a bit of difference. Standardizing this using Blinks already makes integration far easier, because we delegate the work to integrate the standard to the wallet. So that means you as a front-end developer don't really have to do much. And on top of this, when it comes to bug fixes, as a SDK developer especially, you have the problem frequently that you need to first implement the bug fix and then make sure that all the users of your SDK hear about this and actually go through with updating it, which is very difficult to do because sometimes they're not responsive and a million other things kind of get in the way there. Whereas if you hide it behind an API that is standardized, you can make all the fixes you want in the back end, and it just works. The developer doesn't have to worry about it, and you yourself as the SDK developer don't have to go through the pain of pushing this out to as many people as possible. So personally, even though it's, I guess, a bit more technical, it's one of the things I'm most excited about, the potential for this to replace TypeScript SDKs in many cases.
That's a great point. I had thought about it as a mechanism for making it easier to integrate into buttons and stuff like that, but I hadn't thought about the pain of developing, like distributing the SDK actually is pretty problematic, right? So one of the first things that I'm sure you all thought about was like, look, I am looking forward to getting drained immediately on Twitter, right? I'm gonna get rugged so quickly now. But the important part about this is the wallet, right? The wallet ultimately plays the key role in showing you what's about to happen. Armani, for you, I'm curious how you wrangled with that thought and how Backpack is protecting users in this case.
So I think there's a couple levels to this. So at the most base level, somewhat of a superficial level, a blink is nothing more than a website. And so the whole origin approval mechanism, transaction signing mechanism, it's the same in the sense that, okay, you click on a blink, the wallet fetches a transaction, it unfurls it, it asks you to sign it, and if you have never signed from that URL before, then it asks you to connect and proceed. But the challenge with this, obviously, is that that is not what the user sees or feels. All the user sees is Twitter. And all the user sees is a consistent user experience where 9 out of 10 things are safe, and then that 1 out of 10 thing is the thing that rugs you. And so this is quite a scary thing to wrangle with, especially because it's a brand new user pattern that basically nobody's been trained to protect themselves against. And so as far as I can tell, I think there's 2 ways to deal with this. The first way is probably the most important way, is to have both runtime guarantees but also simulation guarantees. And so there's a bunch of companies that specialize in this, 2 in particular on Solana, Blockade and Blowfish, who are both doing really great work. It's basically every time you see the transaction signing screen on Backpack or Phantom or Soulflare or MetaMask or whatever, they'll simulate the transaction and approximately tell you what the outcome will be. Now, we all know that this is insufficient. Runtime data dependency introduces a bunch of challenges. You have bit flip attacks where the simulation says it's okay, but then you actually sign and send the transaction, and then you get rugged when the transaction gets mined because there's some if branch in the smart contract that decides to send all your money if it's true or whatever. And so whether it's blinks or honestly just Solana transactions in general, we need to be able to do better. And so I think there's basically a couple of techniques that we've been employing at Backpack and we'll employ also in the future to basically mitigate against this. So the first technique is taking advantage of some of the very unique properties of Solana transactions, namely the ability to label accounts read and writable at signing time. If you've ever seen like the Backpack Wallet's locking feature, this is like basically what we do. So if you ever sign a transaction that writes to your NFT, so basically tries to send it to another wallet, we'll basically warn you about it. And so I think this is one like underutilized property of the Solana runtime that I think wallets, but honestly any kind of developer can utilize more of. And it's super valuable because you could basically have a guarantee that before you ever sign a transaction, you don't even need to simulate it. You can basically say if something's even within the realm of possibilities. And so I think this is one really important technique to utilize. The second is has not been utilized much at all, but is starting to become relevant to the toolkit of developers more broadly on Solana, which is to utilize transaction bundling. And so basically, an additional technique that you can do is you can, at runtime, play the transaction, and then at the very end of the transaction, check some invariants. So I can sign a transaction where the wallet tells me, okay, at the end of this transaction, I'll have 1 SOL left. And then when the actual smart contract executes and gets to the end, it will check this property. Do you have 1 SOL left? And if you don't, then reject the transaction, abort, and roll back the entire change. Now, the problem with doing this, and to be frank, it's one of the more challenging, more annoying, more bigger downsides of the Solana runtime, is this very annoying 1232 byte transaction limit for the size of transactions imposed by the UDP kind of a transaction size or whatever the protocol is, which just kind of makes no sense given that Solana doesn't even use UDP anymore, uses Quick or whatever. But I digress. But a way around this is transaction bundling. So instead of having a single atomic transaction, you can have a set of atomic transactions. And so Jito, shout out to the Jito guys, they're doing a bunch of great work. I don't know the exact number, but an enormous amount of Solana stake now is now running Jito nodes. But they've introduced this bundling primitive where you can now have bundlers come along. It's basically a different way of producing blocks to construct these transactions with not one transaction, but multiple transactions. So that now gets you around this 1232 byte transaction size limit so that you can do these more sophisticated runtime guarantees where you can have very safe, very specific invariants that guarantee that you don't get rugged. Now, the one problem with bundles is that you actually can't guarantee, as of right now, that your bundle won't get unbundled. And so if you have a malicious miner, then that is something that you more or less can't get around given the current protocol. And so this is kind of a really important tool in the toolkit, something that I hope gets improved, a problem, more of a research problem at the moment that I think is paramount to prioritize. But I think like these sets of tools basically gives you everything that you need to kind of prudently defend against the major, like 9 out of 10 attacks. Probably all of them if you constrain the set of wallet actions sufficiently. And so I think there's a lot of really compelling solutions. And then there's obviously like the whole concept of whitelisting URLs and origins, which is a bit of a hack, but something that's also a reasonable thing to do in the interim until these like more long-term, more fundamental solutions get into a more kind of ossified state, if you will.
I think that's a great point too. Like this stuff is super early. It's still an incomplete specification. There's a lot of user patterns that we haven't seen before now that we're pushing crypto to the edge, right? So, this will develop over time. We'll find better ways to handle the safety and security and all that. I want to make sure people understand there's two terms that we're using here. Blinks is the thing that you see in like the Twitter. That's the unfurling that the wallet is providing. Actions are the API that return back the transaction. Now, what's cool about that, and we haven't touched on this just yet, but you can do anything that you can do on chain, you can do using an action, right? So you've done an action before as well. If you tapped your Venta playband at the coffee shop, that was an action, right? That's a Solana Pay transaction request. And in this case, they actually are identical specifications. This technology has been sitting here for 2 years, but because we called it Solana Pay transaction request, you only ever used it for payments. But now we're breaking it out, allowing you to use it for other kinds of products. For the group, I'm curious, what are the kinds of interesting new things that you think, it doesn't have to be on your product, what are the interesting new things that you think people will start to do on Solana using Blinks?
I do think that on Twitter we always see people posting links about the up and coming let's call them shit coins. Let's say if you were to put like a bird eye link, the actions that you see just now is just like a swap. You're just buying tokens. But what if it's a more richer information display below? When if you put a bird eye link, you get like a mini graph at the bottom. You can get to swap directly, and then, or if we were to put like a Jupiter DAO voting proposal, you get to like vote instantly. We always have like up and coming proposals that we're trying to make people to come and vote. It would be pretty amazing if people can just directly vote in Twitter or in anywhere in Jup research or everywhere that these links appear, and that would be very amazing. Yeah.
I feel like Solana super apps is something that can be easily built with this as well, because I remember there's a project called Soul Hub or something like this. Sorry if I'm butchering the name. But essentially the idea behind that was to take all the DEXs that exist, all the lending protocols, all the whatever protocols, use their TypeScript SDKs and put them all in one website, which means that if you want to swap a specific token, for example, you don't have to check, does it exist on this DEX or does it exist on this DEX? You can just have that all in one website. Problem with that is, for example, I know the guy because he tried to integrate Elusive back when we were still doing that. And for him, again, the thing I talked about with SDKs earlier is a huge problem, because if you have like 50 SDKs on your website, you might have problems with incompatibilities, with one getting updated, the other not getting updated, and tons of these other issues. Whereas if you have blinks, it's really just as easy as implementing the specification once, or even just easier than that since the wallet does it for you. And then just aligning the blinks that you want to have, the applications that you want to have on your website, without really having to worry about much more than that. So I think that's a big unlock, because if we look at Jupyter as well, aggregators are a huge thing on Solana. So if you can aggregate in the front end as well, I think that's a big thing.
I mean, I'm totally imagining a registry of all the actions you can do on Solana. So rather than having to guess where things are, it's just, here's the list of things. You can do this governance vote. You can go move your token here. You can buy this other thing. And it's just right there, right in front of you. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah. So for example, like something really cool would be, there are like a lot of apps, chat apps. Like we had Dialect long back. They introduced something called smart messages, where you can send money, where you can like buy NFTs inside chat. And I think now it will become more easier for people building similar kind of things. I guess there's something called Soul Chat. And then, for example, Backpack had an in-app chat, things like that. It will become easier for them to integrate a lot of other smart messages. Maybe in future, we might have something inside Discord, wherein like you can just do stuff inside Discord. There are a lot of things people can actually do. Maybe you can build something like an extension which injects a button into the UI, and then through that, on click of that button, it opens like multiple actions you can do. For example, send someone some tip, or like calculate something by extracting the wallet address from, like it opens up a lot of design space. I'm really interested in like new things which will come up. One quick thing, if someone wants to hack around, is I think you can build link shorteners, or like no-code tools for people to create blinks. Maybe they can like start collecting pre-sale directly from like whatever the meta was few months back. They can start collecting because a lot of people don't know how to like create code, and apps might take time to implement all this. So you can just go ahead and build a no-code tool that will help people create blinks really fast. Link shorteners are another example, and a lot of other things can be done, I think.
And I think everyone fundamentally gets that concept of sharing a link, right? You just copy it, you send it somewhere, see if it works. And in this case, if you have the wallet, it'll unfurl it. If you don't, it'll go to the dApp, and like you do the whole flow. So I think you hit it on the head there. What else? What other cool things have you been thinking about?
Apart from like performing simulation kind of base error, checking if a transaction is malicious or not. I think at Jupyter, what we try to do is we want to make integration as easy as possible and as open as possible. It doesn't have to be swap. It can even be like a bot order. So many people don't realize this, that if you place a single interval DCA order, it's kind of like a bot buy. So in this sense, that our bot try to helps you perform a swap with with a good amount of slippages, so you don't have to worry about too much. And if you are on our UI, you see that a lot of the warnings are actually on the front end. And sometimes it's not just about if this is a malicious transactions. It can be if the price is bad, if the token was just newly released, they still have a freeze authority, permanent delegates, or a lot of things happening. So I can kind of see blinks, rendering more richer information, or even Jupyter can provide like a more enriched endpoint that's just more than swap. That includes warnings as well. Hey, the price is pretty high. Are you sure you want to do this? This token is newly minted, and we think it will be cool.
The specification allows for really flexible, creative, like images, updated text. The buttons themselves can be updated. We didn't show this example up there, but you can see like, hey, you go there and have buy the floor from AdLads. The button shows what the floor price is. So there's a lot of cool capabilities there. What else?
I think, for example, like we have Fuse Wallet right now, and there is a DeFi tab on Fuse Wallet. So it would become really easy for them to implement a lot of other things which they might not have thought before. And like wallets can now make, actually because everything is inside wallet, so now they do not have to integrate a lot of SDKs and things become heavier. I think wallets can now go ahead and try to like simplify the browser tab they have, maybe for normal people who are onboarding. Or for example, Jupiter recently launched a page where you can like onboard to Solana. So you can directly have like actions there. Like what you can do is you can just swap, or you can get an LST or mint a NFT from a single page itself, which is like a 100x improvement in UX compared to like directing them, hey, these are the 5 apps you can try. So I think there are really interesting things which this is going to unlock. Yeah.
I agree with that, because what you said specifically about wallets having a whole integrated browser, like the reason that's like that right now, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, is because the wallet doesn't really know what the dApp is going to look like. So it has to support an entire browser, so it can be like, okay, no matter what the dApp wants to do in JavaScript or in CSS or whatever, I'll be sure that I can display that. Whereas with Blinks, you're limiting to some extent how it can look, what the format is going to be, and it's just standardized in general of what a Blink can actually do. So I think that also has potential to say, okay, of course we can display things on Twitter, which is very cool, but also we can, for specific actions, just have them in the wallet in a more succinct and better integrated way, just because the standard gives you a better idea as a wallet developer of how the dApp is supposed to behave.
Look, if I'm about to get liquidated, I don't care what I need to do. I will top that thing up. Just give me a button, and I will keep clicking that. I do not want to get liquidated. Thank you all for your attention. Just a quick reminder, you are not allowed to tweet about this. If you do, I will find you. I will fly back here, and I will get you. Thank you to the panelists, and thank you all for listening.